May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Pascalakis?
Here.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Mr. Chapin? Ms. Powell? Here. Mr. Dennis? Ms. Tuggle?
Here.
Ms. Nazat?
Here.
Chairman Mayor?
Here. Approval of the minute of October 11th, the meeting of the 2017. Can I get a motion on that, please?
I move that we approve the minutes for October 11th, 2017.
Can I get a second?
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The October 11th meeting is approved. Staff report, please.
I think first up is police today.
Please do.
Good evening, everyone. I feel like I haven't been in front of the board here for a while. I know I had to send some representatives the last couple of times, but I apologize for missing those previous meetings. Some of you I still see every day, so that's good. Just to give you guys an update on the stats for the district. The district overall is down 3% in Part 1 crimes. This is for January 1st through November 4th. We're down 24% in auto theft. We are currently up 4% in burglaries. We're down 1% in larcenies. We're down 41% in robberies. That's probably our greatest achievement for the year so far. We're down 3% in aggravated assaults. We're actually at a 0% change for sexual batteries, and we are down 19% in domestic violence cases, which is a huge thing for us as well. The city overall is doing great as far as crime. We are currently in kind of a spike for car breaks and auto thefts, but we've diligently been making arrests on that, and the cases that aren't being arrested by patrol, CID's been working to close those out on and make cases on the people who are pawning the stuff and everything. So we're doing really well as far as crime goes. We're working on some quality of life issues throughout the district, largely based centered around the homeless population. Obviously, we're working towards the shelter with the city and everything, but we're also trying to work on getting them tracked into services that are available now rather than just leave them out on the street. And of course, if there's law violations, we're addressing that as well. Does the board have any questions for me?
Any board member have any questions? I have a question. Listen, is it lately? It's been a lot of car break-in on the Beachside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been just in the recent probably 3 weeks, there's been an uptick in it. It's not just the Beachside; it's the county as a whole. Okay. It's a crew of folks that we commonly deal with. They were locked up for a period of time. They got out. They've kind of got reorganized, and they're kind of running around all over the place. We've arrested a lot of those people over the last 3 weeks. A lot of it through great efforts by patrol. They've been out catching people in the act and making a lot of prowler arrests, as well as making arrests for car breaks that they either stumbled across or that people called in. And then, in addition to that, the city has been doing operations, as well as the county has been doing operations that have been centered or focused on those two issues.
Okay. It just came to my attention the past few weeks that there's been more than average on the car break-ins, and it seems it's not. These are kids. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say they're all kids. I mean, they're younger than me, so I refer to them like they're kids.
Well,
but they are. Many of them are juveniles.
Yeah.
There are some of them that participate in it as well that are in those over 18 to early 20s as well.
All right. It just came to my attention.
Mostly it's kids, yes.
Yeah, because some of the things they do afterwards when they steal the car, it doesn't sound very professional. It sounds like it's a bunch of kids, either using the phone, the phones they found to call the owners and making fun of them, and it's just a bunch of. Yeah,
there is some of that stuff that occurs. We do hear that sometimes about, especially from the phone thefts and stuff. Yeah. I mean, we're working on that issue, but the juvenile justice system's pretty liberal, I guess. They let them back out, pretty regularly. They're trying to, not impact them by locking them up for long periods of time. So
Yeah,
We work through that process, though. There is a process for our repeat offenders, the people who are continuously victimizing the neighborhood, that we work with them as regularly as we can to be able to get them on either ankle monitoring or other issues if they qualify for those things.
And the reason I bring that up is just because it's coming up soon to the season. There's going to be a lot of cars on the beachside. There's going to be a lot of cars in the hotels, you know.
Absolutely. And when we get into that season, we are prepared for that. That's part of why those numbers are down during that time period last year, because we were actively patrolling those areas and keeping an eye on those areas. The biggest thing we can try, if you can express to the people that you communicate with on a daily basis, is to lock your doors, lock your doors, lock your doors. And if you have a firearm, don't keep your firearm in the car. That's one of the biggest problems we're having right now. They're just getting up and walking away, and it's usually unsecured cars. I mean, those of you who have been to the CompStat periods, you know that the bulk of our car breaks, it's just because people didn't lock their doors. That's what it comes down to.
I do have
Oh, yeah.
one. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I thought of a question. The 10 new officers, are they? We saw that you have 10 new police officers.
That are in training, yes.
They're in training.
Mhm.
They just started their training.
Right.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I think that's what you're
stage
referring to.
they were at.
They're part of the way through training. They're through the 8-week part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the in class, and you're seeing where they were sworn. When they become sworn, that's when they enter into what we call phase 2, which is when they ride with a training officer out on the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long before we have these 10 new officers available? Is it like a year, another year? Or how
Well,
long?
they're in the training process for actually just probably almost a little over a year more, but that doesn't mean they're not out on the street. The part of the program that they've entered into now is about a 14-week process. You try to lock me into numbers like 10 people. That's what I try to do. Hey, tell me how many I'm going to get and when. But the hard fact about it is that the process is hard and it's long, and that's because there's a lot of responsibility on police officers. So they will not all make it through there, most likely. We're happy if only a small percentage fail out, but there are some classes that just can't make it through. We have processes where we try to recycle them into our part-time program and give them another opportunity, but it's about 14 weeks from now and we'll know whether they're going to make it to the next stage, which would be the phase 3, which they're out on their own, still receiving training from a supervisor on the street.
Is there another batch right behind them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, we can't hire people fast enough right now. Where people are retiring faster than we can pick them up. So,
How many of them live in Daytona Beach?
how many of the 10?
Just
I have
curious.
no idea.
No? Okay. Just
Yeah, I know we try to encourage that, but I'm not really sure the number.
Thank you, Captain. Anybody else has any question? No? Thank you, Captain.
Thank
Thanks.
you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
You too.
Good night.
Thanks, Captain. Mr. Berger.
All right. It seems like it was a month ago, but just after we had our last board meeting that we had an exercise that we did out on the street, on Main Street and up on Granada. And I don't know if someone else is going to speak to that. But we looked at the intensity of the lighting, comparing what the lights were like on Main Street versus the lighting that was out on Granada, particularly at a crosswalk in the downtown area of Ormond Beach. And we were able to do some rough calculations, looking at lighting levels, and look at the type of lights. And so we came to some conclusions about where we think the lighting needs are. And it was kind of interesting because the lighting levels were roughly the same in both cities. The biggest difference I think we saw is that on Main Street we're missing a lot of the tall poles that light the street, not the sidewalk but the street. Mm-hmm. And so it does make it darker over there. And so the proposal that's been put forth right now is to look at putting some high poles out there, upgrading some of the light heads along that street, and we're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of about $260,000 roughly to do that type of work and get those high poles in and get some of the lighting along the entire street. And we've already had initiated some of the work with the LEDs over and replacement of poles closer to the ocean on the east side of A1A. And so that is complete, but it's moving to the west side now and finishing everything there. We are at this time doing the painting of the poles that are in need of that. So the existing poles will be repainted. That's already in process. We've got the order in. They're ready to proceed on that if they haven't already. I haven't been out there in the last couple of days, but they're ready to go. So you'll see some improvements there. There will be some additional improvements that we're looking at. A1A, the lighting out there, hopefully you've seen some of the lights finally turn on in that area because it's been some time since Irma, and we lost some of these lights, and part of our problem was just the electrical boxes and getting that fixed. That's happening. We also had something else that I just recently learned about with the taller poles on A1A, which I think I mistakenly said were FPL poles. They're not. They're actually we had, when we did the streetscape, we took over these poles in this certain area, right in the core area of where you see some of these poles. We're responsible for those. And what's happened is those poles, when they were installed in that new streetscape on A1A, they actually twist in the high winds, and there's some issues with them, and we're looking at, because of all of that impact, that's affected some of the outages that we've had with the storm. So we're going back in there, and we're seeking FEMA assistance in some of these matters. And whether we get it or not, I don't know, but if we do get it, it'll be about 80% of the cost. And then there's the lower poles on A1A, and the damage that was caused there by Irma is we're looking at somewhere in a replacement that's about 270. I don't think I brought it here, but 275,000 to come back in and replace all of the damage that's happened there and get a consistent look back on that street. So that's some of the costs and projects that we're looking at. Hopefully some of that will be picked up by FEMA. If not, I think we would like to see if that's a possibility that the county, which is looking at ways to assist in some way with infrastructure, it may be able to participate as well in financing some of these bigger costs that we right now don't have in the budget. Let's see. I think that covers most of the projects that we're working on at the moment.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah. You didn't mention ISB. Are there any plans at all, or is any plans to even evaluate that from the bridge to
the
beach?
lighting. I know you last time you mentioned the
Yes.
lighting that's down by the bridge, and
Yes.
I've got no response yet on what it's going to cost us on the bridge. It's kind of tied into the DOT
Right.
improvements that they're going to make, and are we, one
You don't wanna
traffic
do-
circle, and you're
Yeah.
going to do these other things. So
Yeah.
it's on a longer term, and I think we're still awaiting the DOT. I hear it's close in terms of getting some
Okay.
response back.
So just keep us updated, because
Sure.
that's the artery to
I don't
everything else
disagree.
we're talking about.
I went down there right after you mentioned that, and
Yeah.
it's certainly very
Thank
dark
you.
there.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Berger?
No, that's it.
Any questions from any members?
Do we know at what point are we in the contract negotiations with Avista, Harvey, and Ocean? Do you know how soon
I
we
do
might?
not know.
No?
I'm not part of those negotiations.
Mr. Newman?
Reed, you were talking about the lighting on Main Street and the tall lights. Main Street has a certain aesthetic to the streetscape there. Are those tall lights going to fit in with that aesthetic, or are they going to be just utilitarian?
I think there's an evaluation between a fluted pole that looks like the ones, the shorter ones that are there. There's obviously going to cost more to do that, and to put in a decorative head as opposed to what we call the shoebox style. And if you're out on Main Street, you don't see it unless you're looking up. But there's several tall poles along the street. There's no rhythm or reason for where they're located right now, but they're there. And because of the way that the wiring occurs, you'll see the wires actually go back behind the buildings because of the lack of locations to actually go into the ground and find the electrical controls. So that's part of the challenge in installing these lights, and why the intersections were being looked at, and looking at 4 intersections in particular where there was a greater need for the light. And so at this point, that's the game plan, is to put 4 poles which will really light up the intersections and put some of that light down to the mid-block.
Back on track, yeah. Any questions? No. Mr. Paspalakis?
One question. When you're talking about the lighting on A1A, we don't have to wait for FEMA. We don't have to wait for FEMA to get an answer before we start repairing the lights, are we? Or that's how it works? Or are we going to do without lights until FEMA tells us we're giving us money?
No, they were able to fix some of the lights already but they've got the fix. But if another high wind comes along next year, we could have the same problem if we don't fix them. Okay, so it's just, do we deal with the mitigation issue of lights that don't work, and there's not a good fix to the way they're designed, and we'd like to have some assistance from the federal government on that.
I think Mr. Paspalak, I think basically they're going to be as is until we get an answer from FEMA.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
I think so for certainly the tall poles.
And they do turn. A strong wind.
Right.
They do turn, and they lose the cap.
Right.
There's a large cap. They do turn. So.
So I wish I had a better answer on that, but I think the good news is the lighting itself is fixed. It's just not a good long-term solution.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Berger.
You're welcome.
Do we have any public comments? Would you please? Yes, please.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. On the lighting, I was not a fan of those big tall poles, but if you drive from Winn-Dixie on A1A south, you'll see that, because now I pay attention to this, that what the Shores has done is they've put a decorative pole alternating with a big, huge high pole. Yes. And the street is really well lit, and all you see are the decorative poles. So the big tall poles can really have a place if they just disappear. That's the one thing about the lighting. It really it's just a stunning display once you start noticing it. It was kind of fun. The other question I have is, who has the parking spaces? Who controls those on Main Street? Because if you come over the Main Street Bridge and you're stopped at Halifax and you want to go straight, there's 2 parking spaces between Halifax and Peninsula. And you always have to drive right over the parking places. And if there was ever a car there, it would be kind of a mess. So I'm wondering if we could get rid of those 2 parking spaces, just because someday it might cause traffic jams. It's something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Any other public comment? Please fill up your. Please.
First Vern Weatherhost, 3 Granville Circle.
Can you say your name and address, please?
Vern Weatherhost, 3 Granville
Thank you,
Circle.
Thank you.
I was down at the Volusia County Legislative Delegation meeting last Friday, and all of the cities, I don't know about any FEMA money coming in anytime soon, so you might as well. The only thing about these lights, what you're talking about is overhead wiring. Is there any possibility of, putting an infrastructure in? You're talking about doing something on Main Street. And I don't think that, the aesthetics is what we're talking about. And, something to be done with the infrastructure, or whether it's in place when you did the streetscape. Was there any forethought on any infrastructure improvements before they did that? And, I'll check on that, or possibly
I don't know.
The higher lightings, you are correct, going down A1A, but the thing about it is most of the lighting along A1A down in the shores is underground. And if there was any thought on possibly coming up, doing something with the storefronts on Main Street. I know that's, the big issue is what I'm talking about with the residents. And I'm talking to some of the owners down there is the aesthetics. And the permitting, even though that, say, like during the events, there's a couple stores that set back off the right of way, and where they have that gap where they're putting a lot of the sales out in the street. And there were some suggestions about not having that, trying to keep that more into storefronts, year-round storefronts. And I've been talking to one of the merchants down there pretty extensively. DOT, on the ISB, you're saying it's pretty close, with the money that they were talking about originally. Is that, I know the money's there. And any idea of when you say close, as close as, 6 months, 2 years. I know how DOT goes. Did a lot of contract work with them. And then any further public input on the street. The design, where they had the 3 designs down at the, was talking about, and DOT is pushing. All DOT projects in the state of Florida are pushing roundabouts. And, that's their big thing. Now, if a roundabout didn't come about on the design, or they could talk the DOT out of it, is that a possibility? And I think that's something that the city should look at closely. Even though that their engineers are passing it, no matter how they cut it, it's a traffic calming device, and that's not what you need there. You need traffic flow. And this is years of experience in DOT projects. That's another big issue that people are bringing up. Just aesthetics all through the town, or through the city, rather. I know that the city manager is pushing, for the cleanup, and that's one of the biggest issues that, from the homeowners where I'm talking to, they're really. I'm sure that the city manager gets his share of calls, but that's one of the big issues. And I think that pretty much covers. I was interested about the police officers. I know the ComStat meeting tomorrow, which I'm not going to be able to attend. I've got code enforcement. But, that's interesting. I think that should be put out more to the public. I mean, Daytona Beach has one of the biggest police forces in any city of this size that I know of in the state of Florida. I think it's adequate and even understaffed. So any input that the city can put out, the police department or anything could put out, where they're hiring new employees and they're trying to get employees and, in the process what they're doing. I know the chief puts it out, in the meetings, but I think it should be more public in the paper, to put that a larger police presence. Another thing I'm hearing is, the police presence. People still like to see, the police on foot. It's one thing with a cruiser or bike, down on, say like in the events, they still like to see them patrolling. And I know some of the areas downtown, where during events or even on the weekends, they set a police cruiser. Might have the lights on, but there's no police in the cruiser. And so they'd like to see something done to that, and that's one of the things I'll get with the chief. But I think would be a good idea, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, please go. Yeah, I know she filled up the...
Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. Mine is more a question than a comment. Starting quite a while ago in January, I've been going up and down Main Street, as have several other individuals, trying to identify the code complaints, and particularly those that are of the aesthetic nature. And when we filed complaints of that type, the response that we got from the code office was that that's the responsibility of the redevelopment department. And so since then, we've talked to the head of the code department, we've talked to Mike Garrett, and everybody's going to find this out for us, how those aesthetically, or the redevelopment area standards, who's enforcing them, and if we want to make a complaint, how can we be sure that it's going to get to the right ears?
Okay. Thank you. I can tell you that as far as the redevelopment board, the redevelopment being responsible for the complaints, my knowledge, and again, I'm going to speak for myself, and Mr. Berger can correct me. I think it falls down on the code enforcement. We don't get the complaints to us directly. They go to code enforcement, and it's up to code enforcement. That's my knowledge. That's my knowledge. Mr. Berger, correct me.
None of us as staff in the in redevelopment absolve ourselves from when you see it, you report it, and we report it to code enforcement. And code enforcement goes out and they deal with that. So there's any issues that are violations of the land development code, and we're seeing something out there, our job is to report it to code enforcement, and sometimes we have to help them find a citation in the land development code, but ultimately that's their job.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I have actually sent in my complaints with the citation from the land development code, and the response that I get is that is not a piece of the code that the code office is responsible for enforcing, that it has to be done through the redevelopment department. So if that is not the case, I would appreciate if you could.
I would love to.
I
will clarify.
It's coming to you, Mr.
For a
Berger.
few people that there, it's clear that one entity goes out and undertakes enforcement, and we'll just clear that up, and I'll be able to report back to you on that. Okay,
Yes,
you're
please.
welcome.
Well, and also, it's special sections of the code that they may not be used to looking at.
Right.
So I think
There's
that's
some.
part of the problem.
Yeah, it is, I think, and I know that there are some steps right now to do some additional training, and we had that discussion today. So I know that we would love to see the ability of everyone. There's been some transition with people in the field, and so it's time again to sort of bring everyone up, help them, with some of those issues. A lot of them are repetitive. You can find a lot of the same kind of violation out there. So it's just getting everyone to understand, and I will help in that process.
Okay.
So I
Thank
have a
you.
question.
Yes, I know we're trying to go ahead,
The
please.
appearance of Main Street, it's like critical that the window displays not cover more than 25%, that they're not window sheets, that they're not torn blinds and peeling shelf paper. And that's covered in the LDC for the redevelopment area. So Main Street could look better just enforcing those codes.
And I totally concur and agree with that.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you as far as, yeah.
One thing, before I came to the meeting today, and I talked to Amy about it in last month's code enforcement, just on our agenda for tomorrow, just in Zone 3, which most of it is in the redevelopment area, there's, out of our agenda, there is 29 violations on our agenda for tomorrow. So, I mean, in every month, and it's rising, and I think that the code enforcement officers that are going out, I mean, they don't just ride around. It's a misconception that these guys are riding around just looking for violations. Well, that's, they don't have time to do that, to be truthful with you. What generates the most of the things that they write up are somebody will call in, and it's neighbor or store that they're calling in on a specific thing. Then when they go out to write that up, they try to look around what's close to, but it's complaint generated. And, I mean, just in the redevelopment area, I mean, you could have, and I think that one of the things, which most of you know, I'm running for city commissioner, in Zone 1, and one of the strongest things that I believe that code enforcement should be carried out, and they should be taken care of in a period of time, and if they aren't, fines should be substantial in what they should do. But code enforcement, a lot of the officers, they kind of get a bad rap sometimes, and the city and the shape that Daytona, even though that it's improving considerably. I mean, they could use 5 more officers any time just on code enforcement to improve the efforts in just downtown area.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. Any other public comment, or we're going to go to board comment, Mr. Newman?
Well, I just had some thoughts about the special overlay districts, the redevelopment, and other overlay districts, and I kind of wanted to ask Vern if those things are always considered at your code enforcement meetings, because sometimes, I live in the North Ridgewood overlay district, and sometimes I feel like that's not really being recognized. Very often, I feel like it's not being recognized.
Code enforcement at the meetings, and Reed can attest that he's sat through enough of them, that when it comes before the board, the only thing that we can really do is what the percent the city presents to us. And, we have an attorney for the board, and the city attorney puts out, and, the officers come to it. But we can only judge on what they present. I mean, I might have my own thoughts about it, especially being, a contractor, and I could ride around and see, a gazillion code violations, building, and just regular ordinances. But we can only judge on what it is. But if you have, a thought on, say, like in the area that you're talking about, call the code enforcement, and that's what I'm saying. It's complaint generated. And if you don't think that it's being applied, then I think that there's enough people in code enforcement that something will be done. Maybe the officers have not seen it, but it hasn't come to their attention.
Right.
I've never seen a complaint generated that they got to their desk that they didn't take care of.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it's my turn. This morning I sat in a meeting at the chamber for the local government committee meeting. And we listened to a presentation from Jeff, I want to say Boger, or of the One Daytona project.
Yes.
And he explained, how far along they are and how wonderful it is. And it really is that it's amazing. It's an amazing project. I mean, if you want to talk about the closest thing we have to Disney, that's probably going to be it. And I was listening, of course, to things that I could take away from that and apply here in our area. And one of the things that I saw is they have and of course this is a private enterprise, it's not city, and it's one, they have control. We have a million different pieces and parts, moving parts around here. But to events, everything from, beautification, they've got that because it's brand new. We need the beautification. We need to fix the buildings up, make things look a little better. They are working on filling spaces. They only have a few empty spaces left, and they're very proud to say they have, 80% new to market. So 80% of the businesses in there are not anywhere around here. So it's all brand new stuff. So that's very exciting. So beautify, fill the spaces, and for us to fill the spaces, we need to simplify the process. I know we've talked about this, and I know that these kind of things are in the works, but whether it's looking at the Bike Week Master Plan, the way that works, the way new businesses are, what new businesses are allowed on Main Street, we need to fill the spaces. And then the last piece was about events. And one of the things that he said stuck out, and he said, they're filling up the calendar for the next year already. They have an event or something going on there. I want to say she said every day. Every day.
Yeah, every day, yeah.
And there's musicians in there. It's like its own little city. There will be musicians, and the musicians want to come there. They don't even really have to court them. They want to come there because it's a desirable location. They have art space. They have artists. They have artistic things going in. So, these are the kind of things that we need to see in our area. And like right now, Main Street, we have the Main Street Merchants Association. We have the CVB doing whichever bike event they do, and the city doing the other one. We have stuff at the Peabody. And then if you want to extend over a little bit out of our CRA, you have the downtown area, you have the Main Street Merchants, you have the Downtown Development Authority, and everybody is kind of planning things, and seems very like it's just scattered. There's no focus. There's no one clearinghouse to see that this Thursday this is happening, and a year from now on this Thursday this is happening, and a calendar. Like you have a calendar for the downtown events. There's a calendar probably on the Peabody site somewhere, on the Daytona.com site. There's sort of a calendar, but we really, really got to. If it's a matter of putting a professional in charge, that would be a good expense in my mind. And I don't know what anyone else thinks about that, but we really, we can do a lot better here. And I think if we look at Daytona 1, we can be jealous and green with envy about how hot it is out there. But we have the beach, and we have the river. We have 3 waterfronts. Every inch of that waterfront should, on 3 areas should be able to be enjoyed by someone, whether it's a private condo enjoying it, or whether it's a restaurant enjoying it, whether it's a boat dock for people to fish off of, or whatever it is. We have so much here. So that's my comment for the evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Yeah, not jealous of Daytona 1 at all. That stuff is sharp and loud, but I will go hang out there and just check it out. But I'm really keen about this whole thing that is becoming more recognized about the importance of developing for livability and emphasizing desirability for residents. And in the process of doing that, we attract visitors more because people like to come see who's doing it right. I've been noticing nationwide there's a few trends in development that could be really good for us too. Tiny house developments are getting popular. People are actually, some cities are actually courting not just tiny houses themselves, but developments of tiny houses. That has a lot of potential to be workforce housing and things like that. Micro apartments. Seattle and other cities are recognizing that there is a hole in the ecosystem, so to speak, of affordable housing for mainly working people or retired people. And so they are developing these micro apartments. They're kind of changing a little bit the regulations to allow a smaller apartment that's more affordable. Another thing that's really exciting is farm-to-table housing developments. It's sort of like, imagine a golf course development, but instead of a golf course, you've got an organic farm in the middle. And you have this. You have these fairly mid-price to even upper-end price homes that attract a good demographic, but there's a farm in the middle and places to go camping with your family. And supposedly there's like 150 of these nationwide. So that sounds really tantalizing for here. What else did I want to talk about? I have been noticing more and more, one of my favorite things is something that I call puffy landscaping. And all that is pretty beach grasses and dune daisies and all the nice stuff kind of layered in a feathery way. And I'm noticing it more and more in town. I'm noticing it on the median strips. I'm noticing it in parking lots. And it really makes a difference. If it's possible for a parking lot to be restful, puffy landscaping gives hope of that. And probably most of you have noticed the Proto parking garage and how nice their landscaping is. That parking lot that's just south of the Hilton and on the northeast corner of A1A in Maine, that's got a lot of nice puffy landscaping. I actually made a cute little slideshow, but my micro projector that I brought doesn't seem to want to project. So anyone who wants, I'll email you a PDF of my little puffy landscaping slideshow. Thanks, that's all.
God, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Now you've got my mind thinking of all kinds of things, and we could sit here all night. I want to comment just a little bit on what Amy said. I agree with her. There needs to be coordination with the different kinds of events that are going on, and I would like the city to be more involved in maybe, I think sometimes there's a breakdown in support when some of these merchant associations put on events, that it's kind of left up to them to promote them, and we don't get them promoted as well as they should. There are a lot of things that happen on Main Street. There are a lot of things that happen on Beach Street, but not everybody really knows about it. And so I think really that's kind of what you're saying, Amy, is we need people to come together and coordinate those efforts so that when people go online, they can see immediately, hey, there's 6 different things going on in the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to pick a couple of them to go to. And the city leaders need to be aware, too. It's not just things that are sponsored by the city. It's things that are sponsored by different associations. So I totally agree with that. And I think that that's lacking because I've gone online before trying to find things and get very frustrated. I would like to see in the future, as we move forward with getting better lighting and everything, designated walking trails and routes and bike routes that actually have mileage on them. I like to run and walk and ride bikes, but a lot of people, I mean, it would be nice if you were walking on the beach or on the boardwalk and you had like half-mile markers and things like that. People really enjoy that. It's an incentive, and it's a quality of life thing for people that live here, and it's a real simple thing to do. So I would maybe encourage that we look into that. Now, I had a question on redevelopment area standards. where does that process start? So if we identify something that we're not happy with in the redevelopment area or something that we would like to see improved or changed, where does that process start? Does it start with a recommendation or discussion from us? Does it have to come from a commissioner? Could you say a little bit about that, Mr. Berger?
Sure. If there's going to be a change in the land development code, when we talk about redevelopment standards and where they are, they're in the land development code. So any change to that would be a text amendment, if that's what we're attempting to do. If we're just trying to get enforcement of the standards that are there already, that's straight to code enforcement in terms of a question, a complaint, any concerns. Okay.
So what I'm seeing is times change, and the codes and the rules and the regulations that everybody has as far as what the expectations are in redevelopment areas. We're set at one point, but as you move along, your ideas of what you want that to look like change. Sure. And so, that being said, when there are things that come up that we think, like you're talking about storefronts, how the storefront should look. So how do we modify that to create something that's consistent with what we think our redevelopment area should look like? So where does that process start if we don't have that in the code and it's something that we think maybe needs to be modified? Is that a recommendation that would come from us to somebody else? Or is that a private citizen goes to the commissioner?
It could be a private citizen. It could be a group of citizens who are organized. It could certainly do that.
I think you have to have a commissioner that will
back it.
Sponsor.
Okay.
Sponsor it, and then it becomes, then the law department will write the text amendment, and then it'll show up on a commission agenda.
Okay. My sense is there are some things that probably need to be changed and reevaluated in order, you're talking about aesthetics, in order to make the redevelopment area more aesthetically pleasing and desirable for the kind of people we want to attract, that there may need to be some changes and that maybe we should have some discussion about that. So.
You'd want to talk to Kelly White about that.
Okay.
But I just want to staff say that I think it's a great idea. You always want to refresh and you always want to update. 2015 we did the whole land development code. But some of it didn't get down to the details that I think maybe can be looked at in there.
Okay,
thank you. Mr. Paspalakis, please.
Just some minor comments. Listening to everybody talk, we all want this, we all want that. Where's the money? Who's going to pay for it? How does the money happen? We're just talking about that, trying to get some lights, and we can't get our lights fixed because FEMA won't give us any money. Or they may or may not give it's a lot of it we'd love to do, but where's the money? And people seem to forget things cost money. If you ever owned a business, sometimes you could say, I need to paint my store this year. Where is the money? When business is bad, there is no money. So a lot of it has to do with if we're not sitting on a surplus of money where we can go and just add lights here and change the landscape. And, it would look really good. Don't get me wrong. I agree with it. Let's do it. But where is the money? So then you got to get people to donate money, raise their property taxes, and then what happens? Everybody goes and complains about raising their property taxes. So it's not as easy as it seems to be. The ideas are great, but my thing is, where is the money? It's always easy to spend somebody else's money. When you got to take your money out there and spend it, it's a different story. And that's about all I have to say, except for hope to see you guys all at the Greek Festival this weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Paspalakis. I just want to make some comment. All the points that people brought in are good points. The point of the lighting, the point of beautification, the point of, and I agree with Mr. Paspalakis, is where's the money comes from. For the past many years, we always looked at where the money can come from to do certain things to the town. The hotel business found a way to get bed tax. They found a way. And I remember many years ago, there was some other issues, and they came up with another tax on gas. that it was supposed to be only a certain time. The tax on gas was supposed to be only a certain time, and it's still on. It's hard to find the money, but first things first is we got to find out things is what do we want to be when we grow up? You know, the old saying is, what do we want to be when we grow up? Everybody has a good vision for the place. Everybody has a good idea for the place, but we still got to step back and say, okay, you know, developers, when they do come in here, yes, there's certain ways they can help. You know, I'm sure Mr. Berger and Mr. Paspalex, I don't know if everybody, you know, a few years ago, we asked developers when they come in to develop some things to help do something else for the town. Beside the development that they were going to do something else for the town. Unfortunately, those developers were, you know, they got some resistance. But I'm sure you remember developers came in here and I remember in 2004, Mike Swerdlow came in here, wanted to put a project for $181 million, and they asked him, what are you going to do for the town? And he was going to donate $4 million to the YMCA. And at that time it was Lisa Kennedy at that time, that was in charge. But it didn't go, nothing went through because of the Swimming Hall of Fame, the project, and that went through. But, Mr. President, I know there is ways to do it, but we got to be able to open the doors to people and tell them, look, if you want to be part of the community and you want to do something in this community, there's ways for you to help the community. Not only put a big development and, you know, make good money out of it and that's it. There's ways of helping the other side of the community. I remember Midtown came up when those bike shops were going on Speedway. I forgot the name. Next to U-Haul. Pompano? Was it Pompano? Yeah, Pompano. Yeah, when they came in, they asked Midtown came in and asked them, could you help us do something? And I think what that store did is they give them the parking to do, raise money, to do barbecues and raise money. So there is ways to find the money for certain things. That's what I was trying to say to you. The other thing, beautification. We not only Main Street, but from the whole A1A strip can use it. There's a lot of beautification coming up from the Hard Rock to across the Bel Air for all the way down to Silver Beach. As far as lighting, I think we're not going to hold our breath on FEMA to come up with something. I doubt it. That's something that I doubt. But, you know, as long as whatever we have, we can use what we have, and it's working, we got to deal with what we have. We don't have the money to fix it now. I mean, to replace it now. We were talking last time about replacing the LEDs and all that, but if we're able to fix what we have now, we should be okay. What else? As far as the puff landscaping, please, I want to meet with you and talk to me about it. I'm getting ready to redo, now that the hurricane finished and the construction is finished, there's a couple of properties I'm redoing. I'd like to know about it because the landscaping company, they usually push whatever doesn't last long on the beach
and it
side.
actually can save money. This puffy landscaping can save
a
lot of money.
I'm sure I know exactly which one you're talking about. But the landscaping company, you hired them, they tried to push something that's going to last 6 months, 8 months, and then it's got to be replaced again. Mm-hmm. So yes, please, I'll give you my information. You know where I'm at. Anyway.
I know where you're at.
Okay.
I'll track you down.
Yes. So that's very interesting, and as long as we keep talking, as long as we keep sharing ideas, I think we'll be okay. All right? Thank you very much, and this meeting is adjourned.